The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Leng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, I am reviewing the Mystic cards in Heart of the Elders, the third Mythos pack in the Forgotten Age cycle. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Mystics go all in on Chaos Bag manipulation in this pack, which means I get to stretch my math muscles again. Fortunately, I had a bit of a guiding light in that department this time around, so with that in mind, let's get started. The first Mystic card in the pack is Olive McBride. Will try anything once. Olive is a 2-cost asset with a willpower skill icon and the ally and witch traits. She has 1 health, 3 sanity, and takes up an ally slot. Olive has the response, when you would reveal a chaos token, exhaust Olive McBride, reveal 3 chaos tokens instead of 1, choose 2 of those tokens to resolve, and ignore the others. Now, I discussed Olive briefly during my review of Recall the Future in the Boundary Beyond, and I've been dreading the idea of writing this review ever since. Math has never been my forte, and Olive's response looked like it was going to be extremely difficult to model given the tools at my disposal. Fortunately, Frank over at the Drawn to the Flame podcast sent me a link to an article by Curtis Miller that helped me immensely. A mathematics instructor at the University of Utah who also happens to be a fan of this channel. Curtis posted an article on his website that explores Chaos Bag simulation in general and Olive McBride's ability in particular. Now, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the article went above my head, but it did point me in the right direction in order to figure out Olive's ability. So I crunched the numbers and I came to the same conclusion as Curtis. That being that Olive's ability doesn't really do enough for most investigators to make her worth your while. I guess that shouldn't really come as a surprise considering she is a level 0 card. There is a caveat, however. While Olive's ability is kind of pointless for most investigators, there are a couple who can put her to good use, especially if they trigger her response before they attempt a skill test that they really have no business passing. So with that in mind, let's look at an example of how Olive affects your pull from the Chaos Bag. Now this example assumes that you're playing the Untamed Wilds from the Forgotten Age cycle on standard difficulty. There are 14 tokens in the Chaos Bag for this particular scenario, which means you can pull 364 3-token combinations if you trigger Olive's ability. If you remove the duplicate results, there are only 148 3-token combinations to consider, which made things a little bit more manageable. I went through all 148 combinations, resolving the 2 best tokens and ignoring the others. That data let me calculate the odds of success for the 8 investigators who can use Olive. I've divided those investigators into 5 groups based on the value of their Elder Sign ability, because the value of Olive's response rises with the value of that particular ability. Group 1 consists of Agnes Baker and Daisy Walker, both of whom get +0 if they draw an Elder Sign. As we'll see in a moment, Agnes is a bit of a special case since the value of her Elder Sign ability depends on how many horror she has taken. Group 2 consists of the investigators who get +1 skill value bonus when they draw an Elder Sign. Jim Culver, Marie Lambeau, Carolyn Fern, and Akache Onyele. Agnes Baker is also in this group if she has taken at least 1 horror. Group 3 consists of investigators who get +2 skill value bonus when they draw an Elder Sign. The only investigator in that group is Agnes when she has 2 horror. Group 4 consists of Safina Rousseau, who gets +3 skill value when she draws an Elder Sign, as well as Agnes again, as long as she has taken 3 horror. Finally, there is Group 5, which consists of Father Mateo, who automatically succeeds when he draws an Elder Sign. Let's take a look at how Olive's ability impacts each of those groups of investigators. As you can see from this chart, Olive gives Daisy Walker and Agnes Baker a shot in the arm if their skill value is less than the skill difficulty of the skill test. However, once Daisy and Agnes's skill value is equal to or greater than the value of the skill test, Olive's ability has almost no impact on their odds of success. In fact, Daisy and Agnes are better off if they don't trigger Olive in certain situations. If you're playing Olive in Daisy or Agnes, you're really playing her for the 3 sanity because her ability is going to have very little impact on your odds of success for most skill tests that you take with those investigators. Now, most investigators have no chance of passing a skill test if their skill value is too less than the difficulty of the skill test. However, the investigators in Group 2, including Jim Culver and Akachi Onyele, do have a slim chance of success if they trigger Olive's ability. If the investigator's skill value is 1 less than the skill test difficulty before the poll, they have roughly a 1 in 4 chance of success if they trigger Olive, since they can draw the +1 and the Elder Sign. That's pretty good if you need to make a Hail Mary. However, once the investigator's skill value is equal to or greater than the skill test difficulty, Olive isn't much help. Now, Jim is a special case here since his special ability lets him treat skulls as zeros. As the value of the skill tokens decreases, the odds on this chart will decrease for investigators such as Akachi, Marie, and Carolyn. However, Jim's odds will remain the same, giving him an advantage over the other investigators. As I mentioned earlier, the value of Olive's ability increases as the investigator's Elder Sign bonus increases. Olive doesn't do Agnes much good, if she has 0 horror. However, if she's slightly more helpful if Agnes needs to make a Hail Mary once she's taken 2 horror. Agnes's odds still aren't great, mind you, but I'll take 29% over 14% any day of the week. However, as we've seen on the previous charts, Olive's impact is almost negligible once Agnes's skill value is equal to or greater than the skill test difficulty. The same is true for investigators such as Safina Rousseau, who gets +3 skill value bonus if she draws an Elder Sign. If Safina triggers Olive's ability when her skill value is less than the skill test difficulty, her odds of success do get a nice bump. I'm not sure how many skill tests you're going to face where your skill value is 4 less than the skill test difficulty, but I guess it's nice to know you've still got a slim chance of success if you're playing Safina. Safina still gets a very small boost from Olive if her skill value is equal to or 1 greater than the skill test difficulty. However, Olive is basically irrelevant to if Safina's skill value is 2 or 3 greater than the skill test difficulty before the poll. Finally, we come to Father Mateo, who is really in a class by himself when it comes to Olive McBride. It doesn't really matter how poorly Father Mateo is doing on his skill test. As long as he can trigger Olive, he has a 26.25% chance of success, which is pretty amazing. The reason, of course, here is simple. The more tokens you pull from the Chaos Bag, the greater the chance that you're going to pull an Elder Sign, which means Father Mateo will succeed automatically. Now, unlike most investigators, Olive's response is somewhat useful to Mateo, even if his skill value is even or 1 greater than the skill test difficulty. I'd say, judging from these numbers, Olive works a lot better in Father Mateo than she does in other investigators, although I can't help feel that Father Mateo would be appalled by Olive's try-anything-once philosophy. It's kind of an odd pairing, the priest and the witch going to battle against the mythos. I've been experimenting with Olive in my Father Mateo deck, and I've come to like her quite a bit because she saved my ass on several clutch skill tests. Let me give you just one example. I was playing the Untamed Wilds, and I just reached the ruins of Estley. Victory was in my grasp, and I just needed to survive the next mythos phase. You can imagine my dismay when I pulled the Serpent of Yoth, who's become something of Father Mateo's nemesis while playing that scenario, or all the scenarios in this cycle. I seem to draw him every single game. Now, I can't remember whether I committed an agility skill icon to the skill test, but I exhausted Olive and drew my first Chaos token, which was a tentacle. I got to draw 2 more, though, which happened to be the Elder Sign and +1. Thanks to Olive's ability, Mateo evaded the Serpent of Yoth, grabbed a clue with the bonus action he received from pulling an Elder Sign, and I managed to finish the scenario. Now, Olive hasn't saved me on every pull, but when she has, it has been memorable, and that's part of the fun of the game when you have those memorable pulls from the Chaos deck. Olive also comes in handy when played in combination with cards such as Song of the Dead. Song of the Dead is one of those cards that becomes a lot better if you can reveal multiple Chaos tokens, since more Chaos tokens equals more chance of revealing a skull for the bonus damage. Olive has helped me pull quite a few skulls in testing, although the combination isn't quite as consistent as I would like it to be. At the beginning of Untamed Wilds, you've only got about a 14.29% chance of pulling a skull. Olive will boost that up to 36.26, which is good, but still not great in the grand scheme of things. Your odds will dip slightly as the campaign progresses and you add more Chaos tokens to the bag. If you really want to leverage a card like Song of the Dead, I don't think Olive is quite enough. I think you really want to include Dark Prophecy in your deck as well at that point. I really think that card is a must. After crunching the numbers, I think it's safe to conclude that Olive makes sense in a Father Mateo deck. She's not bad either in Safina Russo or Jim Culver, although I probably wouldn't hesitate to cut her for a more impactful ally. I think you could even make a case for running Olive in an Agnes Baker deck that's running 2 copies of Arcane Research. Agnes would start the campaign with 2 Mental Trauma, which would boost the value of her Elder Sign bonus to +2. If you're not playing one of those investigators, I'm afraid Olive isn't going to have much of an impact, so you're much better off considering other allies for that coveted slot. And I'm not even sure she'd make the cut in that Agnes deck, just because ideally your goal would be to heal those 2 horrors as quickly as possible so you could get more leverage out of Agnes's special ability. That said, I think it's important to remember that I've only considered the impact of Olive's ability on a single pull from the Chaos bag during a single scenario, in this case, the Untamed Wilds. Mystics and off-class Mystics have access to all sorts of Chaos bag manipulation tools that interact in strange and wonderful ways with Olive's response, which you may trigger during any pull from the Chaos bag. This can get complicated if you pair Olive with a card such as Grotesque Statue, for example. Both cards have a response to revealing a Chaos token, so if you want to use them, you need to trigger them simultaneously before you pull from the Chaos bag. However, you do get to choose the order in which they trigger. For example, if you trigger Olive followed by the Grotesque Statue, targeting the first token that you pull, you would draw 2 Chaos tokens from the bag and choose one of them. Then you would draw 2 more tokens from the Chaos bag and choose 2 of the 3 that you have revealed. If you do it the other way around, simultaneously triggering Grotesque Statue followed by Olive, you would draw 1 token followed by 3 for Olive. Then you would choose to resolve either the single token or 2 of the 3 Olive tokens. Olive interacts with Dark Prophecy in much the same way. I've already talked about Olive more than any other card in this Mythos pack, and I haven't even considered her interactions with cards such as Ritual Candles, either Level of Defiance, Recall the Future, or any of the cards that use the seal mechanic, including one of the cards in this pack, Premonition. Generally speaking, Ritual Candles, Defiance, and Recall the Future are more likely to trigger if you see more tokens, so I think Olive makes these types of cards a little bit more consistent. As for the seal mechanic, sealing a token doesn't change an investigator's odds of success very much. However, I would be wary of sealing that +1 or Elder Sign token when using Olive, since much of Olive's value depends on pulling an Elder Sign. I'd love to share with you how Olive interacts with the Premonition from this pack. Unfortunately, I simply don't know. Several players asked Matt Newman, the designer of the Arkham Horror LCG, to clarify how the 2 cards interacted, and he replied that the interaction was somewhat complex and that it would be addressed in the next FAQ, which would be released soonish. So I guess we're waiting for the FAQ to resolve that particular mystery. If you've made it this far into the review, I think you're a trooper who really deserves a gold star, or I've probably driven you insane, one or the other. All of McBride can be a very difficult card to wrap your head around because she creates so many complex interactions with the Chaos Bag and other Chaos Bag manipulation tools available to investigators. Once you scratch beneath the surface, you quickly realize that Olive's ability isn't all it's cracked up to be. I would certainly consider playing her in a Father Mateo deck. I may even consider her in Safina or Jim. She also may have potential if you're willing to go all in on Chaos Bag manipulation. For the vast majority of investigators, though, I think Olive simply isn't worth their while. So before I wrap this up, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Curtis Miller for pointing me in the right direction. This review certainly would not have been possible without his pioneering work on Olive, and I'm looking forward to seeing his work if we see any more of these complex Chaos Bag manipulation tools. The second Mystic card in the pack is the level 2 upgrade for Defiance, a skill released in Blood on the Altar. This version of Defiance will set you back 2 experience points. It has a wild skill icon and the innate and developed traits. It has the game text, ignore the effects of all Skull, Cultist Tablet, and Elder Thing symbols during this test, including their modifiers. Level 0 Defiance has its admirers in the Arkham Horror community, but I've never really been a fan of this card. The chance of pulling the token you name with level 0 Defiance is often so small that I don't really see the point of dedicating a card slot to that type of effect. I would much rather just focus on generating the skill bonuses necessary to trump all the special tokens in the bag, rendering a card like Defiance unnecessary. That said, I did recently start playing this card in my Silas Marsh deck, but that's only because Silas has the option of pulling Defiance back to his hand with his response if he guesses the wrong token. Mystics have received a lot of Chaos Bag manipulation tools that cost 2 experience points lately. One of them being Time Warp, a Mystic event from Dim Carcosa. It let Mystics undo an action immediately after resolving it, which could cancel a pull from the Chaos Bag as part of its effect. Counterspell, a Mystic event from Threads of Fate, may cancel a Skull, Cultist Tablet, or Elder Thing token after it is revealed during a skill test at your location. Level 2 Defiance is a much more effective Chaos Bag manipulation tool than its level 0 counterpart, since it removes the whole guessing game element and simply targets all of the special tokens in the bag and ignores their effects, including their modifiers. If the special tokens in the Chaos Bag are extremely negative, Defiance neutralizes them. Now, I don't tend to worry about the negative effects of Chaos tokens, but if those effects are really terrible, Defiance will neutralize those as well. The key difference between Defiance and the other 2 cards that I mentioned is that you can wait and see what you pull from the Chaos Bag before playing either Time Warp or Counterspell. Defiance, on the other hand, must be committed to the skill test before you pull. In committing Defiance, you do run the risk of the card going to waste if you don't see a special token, which isn't ideal. For example, if there are 16 tokens in the Chaos Bag and 5 of them are special tokens, you have only a 31.25% chance of pulling one of them. Those odds aren't very good. However, those odds don't tell the whole story. There is a good chance that your Defiance will go to waste, but it also improves your odds of success dramatically in certain situations. For example, let's say that you're playing Akachi. There are 16 tokens in the Chaos Bag, 5 of which are special tokens with a value of -2 each. As you can see from the chart, Defiance doesn't help your skill value, doesn't really help you if your skill value is 1 less or 2 greater than the skill test difficulty before the pull. However, if your skill value is even or 1 greater than the skill test difficulty before the pull, your chance of success nearly doubles with Defiance in the mix. If I need to pass that test, I think that's a risk I'm willing to take. If the special tokens have really terrible effects, then I think Defiance gets even better. Defiance's value rises if you play it in combination with other Chaos Bag manipulation tools that pull multiple tokens from the bag, such as Grotesque Statue, Dark Prophecy, or all of MCBRIDE. Pulling more tokens means more targets for Defiance, which is a good thing. As I mentioned earlier, I've been playing level 0 Defiance in my Silas Marsh deck since Silas can pull it back to his hand with his response if he doesn't pick the right special token. I think level 2 Defiance is going to be a very tempting upgrade for that deck. Between Time Warp, Counterspell, and level 2 Defiance, Mystics and off-class Mystics have quite a few options to counter special tokens at their disposal. Level 2 Defiance is riskier than the other two since you do need to commit it to a skill test before the pull. However, if the special tokens in the Chaos Bag are extremely negative, or have extremely negative effects that you don't want to deal with, level 2 Defiance may dramatically improve your odds of success and prevent those terrible effects from triggering. And that's before you consider all the other ways to rig the draw from the Chaos Bag in your favor. Now, I think I prefer Time Warp and Counterspell for spot Chaos Token control a little more, but if you're going all in on Chaos Bag manipulation, you're really worried about the negative effects of special tokens, or you're playing Silas Marsh, I think level 2 Defiance is going to be a very valuable tool in your arsenal. The final Mystic card in the pack is Premonition. It's a free event with Intellect and Agility skill icons and the Augury trait. It has the game text Fast. Play during any player window. Put Premonition into play, reveal a random Chaos token from the Chaos Bag, and seal it on Premonition. Forced, when a Chaos token would be revealed from the Chaos Bag, resolve the token sealed here as if it was just revealed from the Chaos Bag instead. Then discard Premonition. The first card released since the Forgotten Age Deluxe expansion that uses the seal mechanic, Premonition gives investigators a way to know which token they will draw from the Chaos Bag before they draw it. Premonition only seals a token until the next token is revealed, either by you or another investigator at the table. So it's not as though you can seal an Elder Sign on Premonition and then just sit on it until somebody needs it. That Elder Sign is going to get pulled on the next test, whether you like it or not. Premonition is one of those rare cards that you may play during any player window. Most of the time you're going to play it at some point during the investigation phase or a skill test, whether that skill test occurs during the investigation phase or the Mythos phase. If you draw Rotting Remains, for example, you could play Premonition during the first player window of the skill test to pull a random Chaos token. Once you know which token you're going to pull, you know exactly how many cards and or resources you need to commit to pass the skill test, potentially saving you a lot of heartache. The same is true if you're making an intellect skill test during an investigate action or a combat skill test during a fight action. Premonition costs you a card, but that card could very well prevent you from overcommitting cards and resources to a skill test that you are going to pass easily or fail miserably. Premonition gets even better if you're playing on hard or expert difficulty. If you're playing on easier standard, there isn't a lot of variance in the Chaos Bag, making a card like Premonition less valuable. That's certainly not the case on hard or expert, where the token spread reaches insane proportions. You've got tokens ranging from anywhere from +1 to -8 in there, so knowing what you're going to draw becomes that much more valuable. Premonition can also help you decide whether the time is right to commit skill cards that have some sort of benefit or create an elaborate combo, such as Double or Nothing or Watch This. There's nothing quite like knowing what you're going to pull when you're trying to set up one of those big elaborate combos. You could also play Premonition during the investigation phase to help you or another investigator at any location on the table make a choice between different tactical options. If you can't decide whether to move to the graveyard or East Town during the Midnight Masks, a little Premonition may help you make the best choice after you see what Chaos tokens await. Obviously, this gets a lot better if you're playing with 4 players where there's going to be so many more decision points. However, it's important to remember that the information that Premonition provides is only useful if you've got the flexibility on your side. If the choice is obvious, say you absolutely positively need to investigate a certain location or fight a certain enemy as your next action, Premonition isn't really going to be much help in the decision-making process. I quite like Premonition's effect. After all the Chaos Bag manipulation cards Mystics have received, it's refreshing to see one that's straightforward and easy to understand. The only concern I have is that we're getting to the point in the game where deck space is becoming increasingly tight. A card really needs to stand out if it's going to knock out one of the staples of a Mystic deck, and I'm not sure Premonition is strong enough to do that, at least on standard difficulty. I've been playing a lot of Father Mateo lately, and I'm honestly not sure what I would cut from that deck to make room for Premonition. I mean, there's just so many cards that he needs to have, and Premonition just doesn't seem to be all that necessary. However, if you are playing on Hard or Expert, well, that's another story. You really need every advantage you can get over the Chaos Bag at that level, and Premonition is one tool that can help you deal with some of that variance that you would encounter. That's going to do it for my review of the Mystic cards in Heart of the Elders. Man, I feel as though I've been on an epic trek through the dense jungle of math on this episode, so I'm going to keep this brief. If you're playing Father Mateo or another investigator with an amazing Elder Sign bonus, all of MCBRIDE is certainly worth a look. Otherwise, you're probably better off with another card in that ally slot. If the special tokens in the Chaos Bag are extremely negative, extremely dangerous, or both, level 2 Defiance is certainly a good call. And if you'd like to know what you're going to pull from the Chaos Bag before you pull it, Premonition is the answer for that. You can probably get away without it on easy or standard difficulty, but if you're interested in making the leap to Hard or Expert, Premonition becomes a much more valuable tool against the variance you will encounter. That's going to do it for me today. If you enjoyed this review, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you'd like to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.